When we have a problem, we turn to God. What about scientists? What about scientists who do not believe in God? Historically, if we see, at certain points, when scientists stumble into certain problems, it was the creation of God which has helped them to find a breakthrough in their discoveries. Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we are going to see some amazing scientific discoveries which was inspired by the creation of God. It's going to be an interesting episode today. Join me. In this world, everything which we see, which is created by man, was recreated by something which was created by God. What I mean is that whatever we see, that is the stars, moon, land, earth, anything which is described or which we call it as nature, or which was not created by man, was created by God from nothing. We can clearly see that in the book of Genesis in chapter 1. But whereas there is not even a single thing which has been created by man from nothing. Anything, any invention done by man is created, or we can say it as recreated from God's creation by admiring it or by observing how it works or how it is there. They just recreate into another product. So we can conclude that there has been no creation by man from nothing, not even a hair or not even a single grain of sand. Keeping this in mind, there are some times where scientists had run into problems and they had faced some hard situations trying to find a solution for that. And there are some cases where scientists had turned to the design of the creation to find a solution for what they are inventing or for what they are trying to discover. Today, let's look at two instances where scientists had come to a deadlock situation and they were not able to come out of it, and they had to turn to the creation of God to find a breakthrough for their discoveries. Number one, the concept of tunnel is being used almost everywhere in the world. We are using it for transport, metro, railway, storage, defense, and lot of fields are using the concept of tunnels. This was not made easy until the early 19th century. Back then, building a tunnel was really a difficult job, especially it seemed impractical to build a tunnel under riverbeds. Let me give you an example. In 1805, when they tried to build a tunnel under the riverbed of River Thames in England, it was a big failure for the engineers. They really found it very hard to dig a tunnel under the riverbed because the clay under the riverbed was too soft. So when they tried digging under it, it usually ended up in a catastrophic event because there was frequent flooding, or there would be or the tunnel would collapse inside. So the engineers almost declared that it was impractical to dig a tunnel under a riverbed. But this task was assigned to an engineer named Mark Brunel, who was a French engineer. He was commissioned the great task of building a tunnel under the River Thames. Now, Mark Brunel, he came up with a new discovery to make this tunnel under the riverbed possible. What he found something called as a tunnel shielding. That is basically, he found a rectangle box which is made of steel, and he ensured that when this box is laid in the front, and the diggers just need to follow that box. That is, even if they dig, or even if there is a collapse in the tunnel, or if there is a flooding, this would ensure that the diggers inside are being kept safe. This was a breakthrough in tunnel building. So, this made building the tunnel below the River Thames possible, and this was the first ever tunnel which was built below the riverbed. Now, we might wonder what would have inspired Mark Brunel for such a great discovery. Can you guess what it is? It was just a shipworm. Yeah, you heard me right. While traveling from America to England, Mark Brunel came across these shipworms in his ship. He found how these shipworms started to dig through the timbers of the ship, and still it was able to remain safe. So when he looked closely at a shipworm, he found that even though it had a very soft body, it had a very hard shell cap which acted like a helmet for the worm. So he clearly observed on how that particular worm was, and he applied the exact same design for this tunnel shielding. This is such an amazing discovery, right? So this was made practical, and this became a great revolution in tunnel building. Later on, they were able to advance this tunnel shielding into further more advanced missions like the tunnel boring mission and a lot more. Have you heard about this tunnel? It's almost 50-kilometer long, which connects the UK to France, and most part of the tunnel runs below the sea. It's such a marvelous engineering, and it also blows our mind when we think the fact that all these engineers were able to build such great tunnels being inspired by a small worm. What we need to admire here is that how great has God perfected his design. In God's creation, there is nothing called as a random stuff. Everything in God's eyes has a perfect design behind it. That's what we need to understand. Now, if we admire the perfect design even behind a small worm, now I'm pretty sure that the concept of self pity is not going to be there in us anymore. How much more perfectly would He have designed humans? It's amazing, right? Now, there is a similar instance, just like how the discovery of tunnel shielding was found and it created a great revolution. There is another instant which scientists found. Let's take a look. Solar energy. Now, we can see this solar energy, the concept of solar being used in so many devices which we use in our daily lives. We can see it in our watches, we can see it in our calculator, we can see it in our street lights, and of course, we do have solar panels in our houses to produce electricity. And same way, the government also has a concept of creating solar plants to produce electricity because as years goes, as technology grows, the consumption rate of electricity is relatively going high. So now there is a concept called as concentrated solar plants. These are basically actually it has so many mirror panels around a tower in the middle. How it works is that these mirrors reflect sun rays to the center tower, which in return absorbs the sun rays and converts the sun rays into electricity. This is how it works. The more mirrors reflect the sun rays, the more efficient it would produce electricity. So the mirrors had to be placed in a perfectly aligned position so that it reflects the maximum amount of sunlight. No matter how you align the mirrors, it definitely causes shadows on the other mirrors. This is called as heliostats actually. Because when the sun rises, it's going to cause shadow at one particular angle, and again at sunset, it is going to cause shadow at a different angle. So the engineers had to place it in a perfectly odd, the best possible way so that it produces the electricity at the maximum possible rate. They were pretty stuck in the situation. Now, I'm referring to a concentrated solar plant near Spain in 2011. This is where the scientists got stuck and they wanted to produce more electricity and they wanted to improve the efficiency rate of it. Of course, the MIT engineers who were working there, they again turned to the creation of God. No doubt it was the sunflower. Yeah, who? What else would come to our mind than a sunflower which follows the sun throughout the day? It's amazing, right? Now, when you take a look at it, it might look like it's a normal design, but it has a perfect design in it. If you see closely the seeds on the middle of a sunflower, it follows a unique pattern behind it. Every seed in the center of the sunflower is aligned in a 137.5-degree angle from the middle. Now, this is not 136 or 138. It's precisely 137.5 because this is the most efficient angle at which maximum sun rays can be received by the sunflower seeds, which in turn is gonna improve the efficiency of the photosynthesis process by which plants produce food for it. This is such a great stuff, right? Imagine how God has precisely created the sunflower seeds so that it is in a very precise angle, increasing the efficiency to the maximum possible level. Now, it also follows particular pattern called as Fibonacci numbers. Now, let me tell what is called as a Fibonacci numbers. That is, if you have 0 and 1 as the first two numbers, the third number will be an addition of the first two numbers. The fourth number will be an addition of the second and third numbers. So that way, the Fibonacci numbers will go like 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. You can see how the sequence goes in the screen. If you see the pattern, how the sunflower seed has been planted also, every spiral follows this Fibonacci sequence. This is amazing, right? All sunflowers whichever we see is not in a random design. the seed which is there in the middle has a very accurate mathematical rule behind it. That's how perfectly God has designed it. Now, what the engineers did was they took this concept from the sunflower and they applied in the concentrated solar plants. And they were able to use these solar plants to the maximum efficiency. This is really great, right? Now, this concept is not just behind sunflowers alone. There are so many plants like pine cones, pineapples, which also follow the same mathematical rule behind it. What we are understanding from these things is that the creation of God is perfect. Every each and the smallest thing which we see in our day to day lives has a very unique design behind it. That's what we need to understand from this. The psalmist writes 3,000 years back about the creation of God. In Psalms 104, verse number 24, the verse says as, how many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. 3,000 years back, the psalmist is able to admire the wisdom behind each and every creation of God. This is such a beautiful thing for us to admire. In our daily day-to-day life, whatever we see around us, it has a very unique design behind it. All we need to do is to try to find out the great design behind the creation of God. It would surely blow our mind. That would be a great joy for us to admire the creation of God. If it's God's will, we'll meet you in another episode of this weekly Pearl program. God bless you.